We are now faced with the fact, my friends, that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, that is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide in the affairs of men does not remain at flood, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in her passage, but time is adamant to every plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residues of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, too late. That is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect.
Global warming is acknowledged by climate scientists today as the greatest single threat to humanity. Weather extremes are on the increase. Glaciers and polar ice packs are melting. Warming ocean waters are decimating coral reefs, and rising sea levels threaten island nations. According to the United Nations, already 150,000 people a year are dying from the impacts of global warming. The cause of global warming is an excessive buildup of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The most prevalent of these is carbon dioxide, and it is produced primarily from burning fossil fuels. For most of the last 1,000 years, humanity enjoyed a relatively stable atmospheric CO2 concentration. These concentrations began to increase in 1750 with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. The CO2 level today is more than 1/3 greater than it was in 1750, and it continues to increase each year. This CO2 buildup corresponds with an increase in the global average temperature, with alarming results. This NASA animation shows the change in global surface temperatures beginning in 1880. Blue indicates temperatures cooler than normal, and red illustrates temperatures warmer than normal. The warming trend has become much more rapid over the last 30 years. In the Arctic, there has been a significant downward trend in ice cover since 1979, when the satellite record began. In 2007, Arctic summer sea ice reached its lowest extent on record, nearly 25% less than the previous record, which was set only 2 years earlier in 2005. This creates a cycle that begins to feed on itself. Because it is white, ice is one of the most effective reflectors of sunlight, and the large expanses of ice at the poles help to regulate the Earth's temperature. Water, on the other hand, is one of the most effective absorbers of sunlight. As sea ice melts, more sunlight is absorbed by the increasing amounts of open water. The loss of this reflective surface drives the momentum of the warming. This is known as a positive feedback loop. The circulation of the ocean's waters, called the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt, regulates the Earth's climate. Warm water from the tropics rises to the ocean surface as it moves toward the poles. Here, The upper right corner of the screen demonstrates the disruption of the conveyor belt caused by excessive amounts of fresh water entering the ocean, where it alters the salinity. We can only speculate what would happen to the climate if this conveyor belt were to shut down. Another result of the warming climate is an increase in the frequency and severity of wildfires. The wildfire season in the U.S. today is over 80 days longer than it was in 1970. During photosynthesis, trees take in CO2 and release oxygen. Because of this, trees are a major means of absorbing CO2 emissions. As our forests burn, they release sequestered CO2 into the atmosphere. And with the loss of these trees, we are losing one of the biggest living carbon sinks on the planet. All of these are serious impacts of global warming. But nothing presents such a dramatic threat as a looming possibility reported by leading climate scientist Dr. James Hansen in 2007, that we are close to an irreversible melting of the major ice sheets. Melting of the West Antarctic and Greenland ice sheets would cause catastrophic flooding of every coastal region on Earth.
If we push the climate system hard enough, it can obtain a momentum. It can pass tipping points, such that climate change continues out of our control. That is a condition we do not want to leave for our children.
Okay, ma'am, has anybody been hurt over there?
No, I don't know about anybody else on my road.
Okay, has your house been hit?
Well, I had a window busted.
Is it too late to stop the progress of global warming? In 1988, the United Nations appointed 2,000 climate scientists from around the world to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC. They charged the panel with providing the world's governments with scientific guidance on global warming. In their first scientific assessment in 1990, these scientists warned that in order to stabilize CO2 levels in the atmosphere, we must immediately reduce global CO2 emissions to 60 to 80% below 1990 levels. In the 18 years since that report was issued, what progress has been made toward this goal? We have not even started to reduce CO2 emissions. And today, CO2 concentrations are at an all-time high and rising. The IPCC was awarded the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize for their work. Why a Peace Prize for a scientific body? The Nobel Committee recognized that climate changes may alter and threaten the living conditions of much of mankind. Of more than 200 countries in the world, one stands out as by far the greatest historical contributor of CO2 emissions: the United States. Today, U.S. emissions per person are twice that of the UK, 4 times that of China, and up to 200 times that of poor countries like Ethiopia. Currently, the U.S. has 5% of the world's population, but produces 20% of the world's CO2 emissions. If the U.S. does not commit to an immediate, drastic reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, nothing the rest of the world does will be sufficient to address the threat of global warming. Can we make such a sweeping change in a short amount of time? We have done it before.
The world has been told that we as a united nation realize the danger that confronts us, and that to meet that danger, our democracy has gone into action.
On the eve of World War II, facing an imminent threat with an army that was 18th in size in the world, U.S. political leaders recognized that only by setting federal policy could we address this peril. The President and Congress mobilized the workforce, approved budgets to fund the war effort, and created programs to draw U.S. citizens into action. Gasoline, tires, sugar, and other food items were rationed. There was recycling of many kinds. People grew their own fruits and vegetables in what were called victory gardens. Rosie the Riveter was one prong of this federal program to mobilize U.S. citizens. The entry of the U.S. into the conflict was decisive. We came together as a country, and in 3 years' time, we changed the course of history. A similar national effort is needed now. The question is not, can we do it, but will we do it? In 2006, the U.S. used 100 quadrillion BTUs of energy. That is the content of 5 billion tons of coal. Enough to fill a coal train stretching from the Earth to the Moon and back, with enough left over to circle the Earth 4 times. 85% of our energy comes from coal, oil, and natural gas. And we continue to invest in fossil fuel infrastructure, perpetuating our reliance on them for years to come. Only 4% of our energy today comes from renewable sources. Rosie Revisited is a plan to heed the IPCC's warning. It is a roadmap for reducing U.S. greenhouse gas emissions 80% below 1990 levels by 2025. In other words, a 6% reduction per year for 15 years. The first component of this plan is to reduce our energy needs by simply using it more efficiently. The average American uses twice the energy per capita of the average British or Japanese to achieve a comparable standard of living. We can implement energy efficiency in nearly every aspect of American life. Energy-saving building codes, Energy Star standards applied to all appliances, and fuel economy in cars and trucks. We can provide efficient and effective public transportation systems in every city in the country and nationwide. And we can implement energy-saving measures in industry.